say it's 7:03 p.m. on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. And we're going to open the regular board meeting. Will you do roll call, please?
Yep. Trustees John Talbot.
Here.
William Luxinger.
Here.
Dina Simpson.
Here.
Jen Christensen.
Here.
Jared Down.
Here.
Chris Samples.
Here.
President Rick Worm.
Here.
Treasurer Brenda Onabany is absent
evening.
at the moment. I Clerk Sandy Mosum here. Attorney Dan Bolin.
Here.
Public Works Supervisor Brett Berkey.
Here.
All right, before moving forward, would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? You're already standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Read the items, please.
Yep. Tonight for approval on the consent agenda is item number 1, the February 9th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes. Item number 2, the bills payable warrant list dated March 9th, 2021. Item number 3 is resolution number 21-07, a resolution amending the Village of Davis Junction Freedom of Information Act policy. Item number 4 is ordinance number 21-03, an ordinance regarding pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And number 5 is resolution number 21-08, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of quote from Water Products Company for 8-inch rebuild kits for meters in well number 1.
At this time, do any of the board members wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda for further discussion? Not hearing any, we'll entertain the first motion.
I move to place agenda items 1 through 5 inclusively as consent agenda items. Further, I move that all items be considered together as a consent agenda.
Second.
Jen moves to lost my mind. Jen moves to include items 1 through 5 inclusively as the consent agenda. Jared seconds. Roll call, please.
Jen,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Dina,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
William.
Yes.
Motion passes 7:06. Entertain the second motion.
I move to adopt items 1 through 5 inclusively on the consent agenda in a single group pursuant to the omnibus vote procedures specified in the Illinois Municipal Code.
Second.
Jen moves to adopt items 1 through 5 inclusively on the consent agenda. John seconds. Roll call, please.
Jared,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Dina,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
William,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
That motion passes at 7:06. We do not need item C, which is for the removed items for further discussion. Just a reminder to the public that we are still operating under the COVID rules, so we will do roll call on everything. Except the utility bill drawing. Jen, you want to pick?
We should have music during this.
Like Yakety Sax from Boots Randolph?
Oh, yeah.
13026 Scott Road. It's in the outside.
Yep, they're a trash customer.
Hmm?
They are a trash customer.
Good for them. It's almost 2 months.
I was just gonna say.
That works out well for them.
Water up there.
All right, I have nothing further under this, so we'll move on to the clerk.
I do not have anything.
Treasurer.
She is currently being held up.
By the train?
By the train.
All right.
So if anybody has any questions on the report, I can do my
Will
best.
Jen Pataki that? We'll circle back.
I do have something on the treasurer's report. Just, if you notice on the front page of the treasurer's report, the CD, certificates of deposits. If you recall, last year, we decided we were gonna start making an extra $500,000 payment towards the IEPA loan. The Byron Bank CD that is coming to mature on June 3rd, it would be my recommendation that we use that CD to make this upcoming year's extra payment. So when that comes time to mature, that'd be my recommendation. So
out of curiosity, do you know the interest rate you're getting on it?
From my recollection, it's like less than 1%.
Yeah, then I would use that.
Yeah, we're making pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I understand.
Like we can get it before that happens, but yeah, we haven't made any significant money on CDs and God knows how long.
We're not alone. Nobody is.
We'll still come back around to that when Brenda's here. Daniel did laugh.
You're
He
assuming
caught
she's
it.
going to make it.
I just heard her. She'll be
Really?
in a second.
Oh, because that train didn't move the whole time I sat
I
there.
was gonna say it didn't either. That's why I whipped it around and
You should have.
Dan, do you have anything at this time?
Huh?
No report.
Just follow.
Yeah.
On to the committees. Jen?
all I have is the Easter celebration drive-through on March 20th. It's a Saturday from 2 until 4. That is all.
Was the rabbit coming? I forget.
Again?
No.
I'm trying.
Right, I was-
The giant bunny.
Didn't you ask this last?
Well, he could have
He
been
did.
10, but since last time.
We kind of had issues with our
You might have something
costume
wrong with
before, so.
William?
I don't believe we have any emergency expenditures. However, I did ask to have the Verizon revenue listed on the agenda as I had a very preliminary discussion with the supervisors on the 2021, 2022 budget. And in doing so, we were reviewing revenue and expenditures and everything else. And the question was posed to me that we are sitting on approximately $30,000 of payments from Verizon that have not been cashed. And we needed to know whether or not we were going to insert this line item as revenue in the upcoming budget. This is an ongoing discussion that the board has had for quite some time. And I reached out to Dan and David to get an update. And what I was informed was that 2 trustees were assigned to this topic. And there has been some movement. I don't know if I would use the word traction, but so I'm looking for an update and whether or not what are we going to do with this 30,000 we're holding? And are we going to put this in revenue for the upcoming year?
Go ahead, because last thing I heard is we were waiting to hear back from somebody. Is that the email I got?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right.
If you can remember this far back to a time before the pandemic, where in October 2019, the board had it with Verizon. This long-running dispute with about their lease. It had been long terminated. And so the next natural action is to file an eviction lawsuit. And as is typical in an eviction lawsuit, you stop accepting rent. Otherwise, you waive that termination, or you create some kind of holdover tenancy. And so, but you recover that rent in the eviction lawsuit. Long story short, we were about to file the eviction lawsuit. In order to do that, we needed to notify the bond holder who had the bond, the surety bond, to secure the removal of the improvements. In response, Verizon threatened to sue the village. And at that point, the board directed us to negotiate a resolution with Verizon, and we've since developed a pretty robust term sheet on what could be included, or what the village would like to see included in a new lease with Verizon. That's that the back rent, the enforcement costs that they previously agreed to pay up through March 2019. And then some other things like a higher base rent, and some terms to help improve the communication with the village. One thing that might do that is a shorter lease term. Right now, the lease with its automatic renewals is due to ultimately expire potentially in the year 2040. If with a shorter lease term of like maybe 5 years, also some annual reporting, some someone local to help communicate and resolve these kinds of issues so that they don't end up in eviction lawsuits in the first place. Those are some proposals that we've sent over to Verizon for review. We are waiting to hear back from them. And so the village's choices generally are to, keep negotiating or start litigating. So either, maybe things that we could do with been working with Chris and Jen on this term sheet and Rick as well. One thing we could do to move things along is maybe schedule a meeting with them, try to bring some urgency about this. The alternative approach is set a deadline and file the eviction lawsuit if they don't respond by that deadline. But I think those are the two general avenues, and happy to take direction on either. But the amount of rent that you mentioned is subject to dispute, and there's two ways to recover it: either get Verizon to agree to pay it, or get a court order requiring them to pay it.
Well, now, if I'm not mistaken, they're still sending us monthly checks. So under their eyes, they're paying it.
Under their eyes, under Verizon's position, is that there's no lease termination, there's no problems with their performance, there's no nothing. But if you accept that rent, you're going to waive that termination.
Their stuff's still up on our water tower.
Yes.
That would have been what he.
I'm sorry, are we depositing those
So,
checks?
I
What are we
mean,
doing with them?
We told them to come get their
Doing
stuff,
direction
and now we
control.
gotta do a litigation, take this to
There's too
court.
many people talking.
Yeah, but shouldn't we be sending them back?
Well, again, what Dan had said, our last direction was to try and negotiate. That's when we asked Chris and Jen to start.
No, and we can negotiate, but you
Right.
probably should send the checks back so that they know that, you're not taking them,
They know.
I like to think that
They're not
18
getting
months or
cash.
more of not being cash, they'll notice.
not.
Well, not
oh,
necessarily. They're a huge company.
Yeah, and it's not I think it's a clear message if you send the checks back.
Sure. I've told their attorney that we've
I'm
stopped.
pretty sure they're aware of our situation.
Right.
Now, my question is, does anybody have any idea how much we spent in legal on this matter?
More than $1.
Too much.
And at this point, we're just in a circle. They still haven't done what we've asked them to do. And then if you're saying that the only other
Brendan's
option is
pulling it
to, we can continue with negotiating, which we're really not negotiating. We're just basically working on a term type, like here's our terms, but they still aren't really acknowledging them. Or we can pursue with litigation, which we've already kind of gone that route, and then they threaten to sue us. So like, what,
We threatened to sue them first, and then they
And then they-
countersued us, and then
right.
we
so
did
like,
nothing.
we're kind of in a
And
circle.
they called
So,
our
like,
bluff.
I don't know what the resolution is, because there's a circle. Because we want it off. They don't seem to acknowledge the fact that they've been in violation of it. We can sue them, they'll countersue us, and we're back to square one, and then what do we do?
No matter what we're paying.
It's a lot of time, a lot of money, I don't know. what the point
Last I
We're losing
recall, they were
money
sitting here in
and
this room
the
right
stuff's
here,
been
and
wrong.
they agreed to pay our legal costs that stemmed up to that point to initiate conversations with them, because we initiated conversation with them in line with the contract that we had, and they did not respond. Then we were forced to go the legal route, and they acknowledged that. And my recollection is they agreed to back pay us all of our legal fees and everything to that point.
And then we
Yeah, no.
started the
That's in the
conversation.
term,
Recall that, but I don't recall that part, but okay.
that's in the term sheet.
Oh, okay, well,
So-
that's, yeah, I don't,
So again, but then that's when the conversation started. Hopefully we're making some, but anything we've incurred since then.
But you have to set a deadline.
Correct.
I mean, I'm not against negotiating and coming to a settlement, but if their tactic is to stall until we get tired of it,
Right.
then you have to set a deadline.
The ball's always in our court here. I mean, this is Verizon. They've got tens of thousands of antennas throughout the entire country. Davis Junction's not even a pin drop on their map radar.
No,
They could give two
I would
drops.
agree.
I mean, if
But-
if we're doing something, we need to do it. If not, we need to back off and force them to tear it down or agree to the terms that we've already got in place and start cashing rent checks.
And it's
Because we
not,
need the
it's-
revenue.
I wouldn't do that. Why? Well, unless
So
you're
we got
gonna
three
live,
options. I'm saying that's not the only one.
if you're gonna live with what they've done, then we should just drop it all now. But if you don't want to, you either want them to meet your terms or our terms or negotiated terms, or take the stuff down, then I would say, don't
Well,
cash the checks and set a deadline. And then if they don't respond, then actually go ahead with the lawsuit.
I
But
agree.
isn't that
We,
what, can I ask though? I apologize for interrupting. Isn't that what we already did once? Like technically, we already set a deadline. They
Mhm.
didn't follow through on it.
more than once.
Right, so I just,
well, and they never held true to the
Right,
terms that
right.
they agreed to in the beginning. That was the problem. We didn't get the structure. We didn't get the noise reduction. We didn't get the fence.
we didn't get anything.
So we didn't get anything that they were supposed to do originally, or even the landscaping. And that's where we ended up where we were, but they just don't seem to be responsive in the least. That's why we started, again, trying to negotiate the terms. But if that's just ending up going in circles as well, or is it making progress?
I mean, I am getting responses from their attorney that I'm hopeful to receive a substantive response soon. Like I said, the suggestions that we could do to put pressure on is to schedule a meeting. And maybe that'll inspire some activity. And maybe that'll get their attention. After all, they wanted to meet with us in the beginning, in November. Not the very beginning, but when we advised them that we're moving forward with the eviction lawsuit, they wanted us to meet with their Verizon's general counsel. And the village didn't want to take that meeting at that time.
We didn't.
I was gonna say, I didn't know that.
Why would we not take that?
Yeah, I didn't know about that meeting. So where's the
Right.
missing key at?
No, we talked about this at a village board meeting. And that in October 2019, we were directed to proceed with the lawsuit. In November, they offered us opportunity to meet with Verizon's general counsel
That was
and the-
before they came here, right?
way after.
Way after.
Well, it's, all that's irrelevant.
Right.
All we need to do now is decide, are you going to continue to negotiate? What's the deadline? And then what we're going to do when that deadline's reached.
Well, our deadlines have no oomph anymore.
Well, they do if you actually
No, they don't.
file a lawsuit.
But then they're gonna counter anyway, right?
They're going to do what?
They would counter.
So what?
Right.
Let's do it.
So what? I mean, is it worth
Is it worth that kind of money?
$200,000?
Is it really going to cost $200,000 to get them off the tower?
It depends on how long they want the
Probably a
light
pretty
on.
accurate number.
Right, that they have unlimited patience.
They have corporate attorneys on
They will
payroll they're paying
they will bury
anyway.
us.
We
I
do
would
not.
Yep.
imagine.
And they can just keep.
I understand that,
extending
but
it.
I don't think that's a forever thing.
Right, the eviction
Pretty
lawsuit
simple.
is supposed to be,
With the.
I don't view this as very simple. I mean, we've gone after many litigations that have been quote unquote very simple,
Right.
that have dragged out for God knows my entire tenure.
I
on
would
this
hope a
board.
rental agreement for a tower lease would not be earth shattering, take 6 years to litigate deal. In fact, we've already messed around for too long. We probably should have already sued them. And
We threatened that and then the board did not want to spend the money.
what are you suggesting?
I want this board to come to a consensus on how they wish to proceed. I think it's foolish that we're gonna throw away that kind of money and that kind of revenue. The 30,000 we have sitting in checks uncashed, we can make it aesthetically pleasing and then just live with it and collect the rent free for the next 20 years.
I don't think we have the authority to touch their property though, so the fence is theirs, not ours.
right,
So
No,
we
but
can't
the
fix
property
that.
is on is ours. And I don't think they own that property. They are leasing it from us.
But the fence, is not ours. So like the.
I think what
No,
I'm
but
saying,
we can plant trees around it that eliminate the view of the fence. We can put up another fence that block that view of that fence. That also that cures other problems
Maybe a heck of
from
a
other
lot cheaper.
neighbors around there that are complaining about other ridiculous things.
Like the noise.
Like the noise. Because
number
it's
of
not an enclosed building and has a metal roof on it.
There's neighbors that have metal roofs. Are people complaining about their noise coming off of their house?
When the metal roof has nothing below it, it makes a different noise than a metal roof attached to somebody's residential home.
You asked my opinion, and these are my options that I see us moving forward with.
are we willing to continue if Dan thinks that he's hopeful that we'll have a substantive agreement or at least a response?
Right. I appreciate if the village doesn't have the appetite for litigation. And obviously that's why we're talking to them instead of going to court. And because I think that's been the board's direction. If the board does want to, set a deadline and file a lawsuit, please let us know. Otherwise, I think something that we could do to accelerate a response from Verizon is to ask them to schedule a meeting.
Then
or-
schedule it.
We could have accelerated the response a long time ago. This has been going on for a year and a half.
At the end of the day, they're not going to
Right.
come in and bring a new building. They've already said
No,
that.
we're not, because it's already.
So
yeah,
what are we,
Well, we're trying to get this back rent and,
but we've got the background.
Not all of them.
Yeah, we do.
Well, anything you've
Yeah.
had
That
for
wouldn't be
18
all of it.
months isn't cashable
Right.
anymore, so it wouldn't matter.
Chris?
The treasurer would probably disagree with that since people
You-
have cashed
you-
our checks beyond a year.
Well, you shouldn't be able to get, I mean, most checks have, the
Correct.
max is 180 days, not 18 months, but, to me, I would rather continue to negotiate, but set a hard line for whatever we plan to do, or just quit and take what you have and move along. I don't really care so much about the aesthetics of it or the noise, because I don't live right next to it. I'm
Well,
just saying,
But
I-
in my-
I'm going to say, I think it's.
I
worth-
understand.
I think it's worth the time to have the meeting with them, see what we can come to, see if we can get some kind of substantial agreement with the term sheet that we've created. At that point, if things are going south, and the board's going to have to decide what to do, but at least let's get past this step. I mean, everything we've done so far, it's been very frustrating. I think everybody that's been involved with this is frustrated, but everything that Dan's done has been in our direction.
And I remember that when we had this conversation a year plus ago, that most of this board wanted to get rid of Verizon right then and there.
Yep.
Well, we
said
did.
terminate 'em.
And that's total, I don't
Right,
think anybody,
I
would-
was against. it
I don't think
because
anybody
I
would
like the
argue that
money,
fact. But the
but-
problem is, we can't get them to take their stuff and leave. So we wanted it corrected, because that was the only option,
No,
because they
I-
wouldn't take it.
Well,
And
we
I-
could
I
have gotten
get
them to
it.
take their stuff and leave, but it would have taken court action.
It would have taken
Right,
litigation, which
And
is
we
again,
decided we didn't,
the
again,
circle that
like
we're
Dan
still
said, we
in.
didn't have the appetite for court. So let's,
Are we ever
Negotiate.
going to have the appetite for court?
When you're talking, for me, like if I were voicing my opinion at the moment, to go up against a corporate company like Verizon at this point, I don't have the appetite for it, because I think it would cost us a fortune,
Jen?
because they will bury us.
I would agree.
I
Like, no,
think it would,
hilarious.
we've already spent way too much money on it, way too much time, and
John?
Let's just see where we can go, Dan. That's how I would say it.
Well, then there's no point.
Because you can't
setting
go
a
back and
deadline.
keep talking about what happened. Well, that's in the past. Well, we don't live in the past.
There's
We
no
have to
point in
figure it
setting a
out.
deadline, and
No,
you
there's
know,
not.
why
Would
would
be
we not
reasonable.
accept the back rent now if we could get it?
Well, like Rick said, if we have the meeting. we
I
can at least see
think
what they got.
I think you and Jen doing this term sheet, you guys with Dan have made progress. Let's
Mhm.
try to build on that. Let's try to
Yep.
build past that and see if we can come up with something without having to set hard lines, without jumping to court, and without just accepting with the status quo.
And I don't really have an issue with that, except for I don't think it's gonna change anything that's Verizon's done. And we'll be lucky to actually have any kind
Well,
of,
then it's a lesson learned. That's all you can.
there you go. And
It's
that's
a
fine
lesson
with me
learned.
too. And
Some
we
of the
could-
lessons we learned.
and then we could take the money and move along.
This wasn't priceless, but it was.
You've been here long enough, William.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll reach out to them and ask them to schedule a meeting with Chris and Jen and see if we can get them to talk to us about this term sheet and see what their response is. But I think scheduling a sit down with them would at least hopefully inspire a response. And we'll see what they say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
It is my fervent hope, though, that if, if we don't come to anything, then we just quit the negotiations and take their money and have our lesson learned so that we don't keep spending money for the negotiation.
Now, or you want me to wait till public?
What's that?
Can I speak?
Go-
now?
Wait till public.
Okay.
I just don't want to keep spending money, going back and forth if we're not going to get anywhere. That's all.
Nothing else.
You good? All right.
Thanks, William.
Jared?
All right, I'm pretty sure you guys seen the rules.
I'm all over you, Chris.
Oh,
I'm over it. Oh, what page is this on?
It's almost near the bottom.
And I think it's bookmarked too,
Yeah.
so,
They
or
are.
whatever, tabbed, whatever.
Yeah.
Learn how to do that.
You can just keep going. It's
That's
like
so
the
nice.
third to last page.
49,
No, keep going.
page 49.
My problem.
I can't. even see the
48.
page. There we go, 21.
47.
Keep going.
too far.
Right there.
All right, just so we have the rules on the screen. Now that my computer decided.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So came up with a list of rules. Must have turn signals, brake lights, and headlights. Must have insurance. Anyone under the age of 16 must be climbed by a licensed adult. ATVs and dirt bike riders must have helmet at all times. Anyone 16 and older must have a valid driver's license. Must stay off personal property as well as village and ditches. Must obey all traffic signs and speed limit. No horseplay or showing off on public streets. Must be registered with the Village of Davis Junction. Must have a safety inspection and certification of inspection that includes line 1 from above and must be shown for registration. First violations are written letter. Second violations double the registration fee. Third violations is double the registration fee, and your registration will be revoked for 1 year from the time of violation. Must have proof of ownership. Dirt bikes, 1 rider only. ATVs, 2 riders only. Golf carts allow the number of seats on the golf cart. Registration is valid only for Davis Junction. Anyone not registered to the Village Davis Junction will issue a $200 fine. A village plate will be issued and it has to be visible on your golf cart, UTV, ATV, or dirt bike. Your registration is not valid for riding down 72, only to cross the highway. Must have a 4-foot pole with an orange flag attached to your unit.
I take it number 13 will also include UTVs to have.
Yeah.
Number of seats.
Yep.
Hey, Rick,
Yes,
can I make
ma'am.
a recommendation that Dan share his thoughts on any
I
of
was
these
just gonna
first?
ask, because I saw the draft, I mean, not the draft thing,
Daniel, you have thoughts
the chart after this.
on
I think
this?
that depends on how we discuss the,
Sure. Let me try to help. Reviewing these rules, I think they're interesting. Some are common, some are less common. But I think I just need some clarity. Maybe this was discussed at committee and we just didn't know. Is this for private property or on village streets?
Free-wheel burning, anywhere you want.
it was
Free-wheel
not,
burning,
it was
Dan.
not discussed as for private
Okay,
property.
it's not, it is clearly says not on private property or park. So it'd be down the streets to get places.
Okay, so in that case, the Illinois Vehicle Code does have some things to say about this. And there is a uniformity requirement
And we
for the
can't make-
rules of the road. And so the
We should just do that.
village ordinances should be consistent with that. I'm sure you've experienced it driving your highway vehicles. The rules are generally the same anywhere you go in the state. So there's already the village has already adopted the Illinois Vehicle Code by reference. So some of these equipment requirements, you might be satisfied with the ones that are already technically on your books. And we can go through and show you that. And those would be consistent with the equipment requirements everywhere in the state. And it might be save you some time and enforcement headaches where your ordinances might depart from the state standard. But let's see, review my notes. The registration and inspection requirements are interesting. I don't know what that means for someone coming from out of town. Would they need to, as soon as they cross the village limits, get an inspection, get a requirement? Might need to think a bit about how that might work. And there might be some legal hurdles to overcome for that. But the primary problem is always enforcement in terms of how are you going to enforce these regulations. And I think that was the conversation years ago when we last looked at the non-highway vehicle ordinance. And I think that's the same question that you've probably already talked about amongst yourselves with this early draft. But I think that kind of outlines our thoughts. But I have some rough line by line comments, but I think keeping it general will be good enough for this conversation.
To me, we couldn't enforce it, so we decided just to let everybody do it, and then you still can't enforce the rules. They're supposed to keep everybody safe. And since I did ask Jared to do one thing, and I don't see that in the, whatever you want to call that. And that is, how will we enforce it? How did we enforce it, Jared, when you were ordinance enforcement officer? I don't know that we did, or any other ordinance enforcement officer ever did either, because it's just not something you can enforce. So by relaxing all the rules and now you're going to enforce these rules, you're just not going to be able to do it. And for those reasons, I'm out.
That's
So
why.
I think that should be, we really need to see.
Registration plate,
who's in.
John,
Time.
registration plate with a number on it. So if someone breaks the rules, they can report that number.
Wow. And then who's going to enforce it?
Then I guess let everybody ride. I mean, you can't do nothing
Not what we're
about it.
doing
So
now,
I guess call Ogle County.
If
And
you
Ogle
scroll-
County ain't gonna come out here for a
Rick,
four-wheeler.
if you scroll down to the next page,
It's on the next page.
Mark did include a summary there of
Yep.
what possible enforcement options there are. But
We all know it isn't.
if you don't mind me following up briefly with Dan, Rick. Okay, so when I talked to Dan, he had mentioned things that the Illinois Vehicle Code requires are things like seatbelts, turn signals, those types of things, which had previously been discussed as not being able to be attached to all types of ATV vehicles. And so I think that would also be a limitation on the types of vehicles that are allowed.
You can get setups for your ATVs that have turn signals and
Seatbelt.
headlights.
Seatbelt.
What?
Can you put a seatbelt on it?
Nope.
That's one of the requirements of the
Well,
Illinois Vehicle
then I
Code, if I
guess
read it correctly
we're-
after Dan and I talked.
I mean, golf carts,
Are you shaking your head no?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
So what we've seen, Dan, I don't know if anybody told you, but what we've seen is that the county is relaxing their rules. They haven't done it yet. I believe they haven't passed it, but at least last time I talked to them, but the Rochelle has already passed theirs. So that we're seeing more and more of this where they're allowing them to use them. And rather than having, it's kind of both ways, rather than having ordinances banning them that we can't enforce, now we're looking at having rules to allow them, which
We can't enforce. Same thing, just on the other side of the coin.
well, the thing is, you would have the people who would follow the rules who would do it, but you're still going to have the ones that were breaking the rules before breaking the rules.
And the ones following the rules would be complaining again about the ones that are breaking the rules and why aren't we doing anything about it? It'd be just like the Verizon thing. It's just going to be this whole circle thing of calling. So, I hate to, that's 2 for 2. So maybe we should have one more of these, but rather than waste any more money or spend any more money, does anyone want to move forward and try to make this a reality? Because for me, I'm out. There's no way to enforce it. So rather than just have Dan and everyone else keep working on this expensive adventure we've been on for this thing we've been trying to do since I've been here 17 years, does anyone want to continue with this? Is there anybody here that wants to see all this come to fruition and let people ride with licenses and poles and flags and all that stuff? I personally don't.
Under this format? No, I do not.
Well, then why let's have a new format and come
Well,
back
and
and talk
again,
about that.
the reason this was brought up tonight was for discussion. So if you have an option for a better format. Or
I don't like the concept of having the UTVs and the four-wheelers and the dirt bikes riding around the road. A slow-moving golf cart, I've always been okay with. It prevents much less of a hazard than anything else.
And that's gonna just stir shit in the pot because you know what? You have
You can have your. shit,
You have
fucking
golf
do what you want.
carts. You have golf carts, people are gonna wanna have
Probably
ATVs, so
be
I guess,
lucky.
you know what, we'll just drop it where it's at.
Well, the guy was riding down the back street. I don't even know what road that is. The last one, and
White birch.
is that what it is? What? The guy who was flying down on his really loud ATV today at about 4 o'clock doesn't.
Oh, my neighbor, they leave and go pick up their kids
Yeah.
with little tiny ones. And then they're ripping around the neighborhood.
This guy rode up and down 3 or 4 times on the back road.
And then they go out on village property and they go ripping up on our property.
He was just on the street that I saw, but I don't think that we're going to stop them. I think the only thing that's going to stop them is if we actually get the Ogle County Sheriff's Department out here to
then that's,
ticket somebody.
that's still a viable option, is to set up an agreement with them to provide.
Personally, that's
Services.
the only.
That's a lot of money to put
It
set up
is.
an agreement with them so people can ride their four-wheelers.
No.
Or to stop them, either way.
That's what I'm saying.
My feeling was them not riding at all and stop people from riding four-wheelers or dirt motorcycles or UTVs, which are, because I don't want to see, and my concern is safety.
Yeah, I'd rather see
That's
the money
my
spent.
concern.
I don't want to see.
It's always
you
what I
know,
hear from the left over here.
Especially as it gets warmer, somebody going 70 miles an hour down a back road and some kid get run over, which,
Or equipment failure and they, Wreck
or,
themselves.
well, actually they could hit a car or they could do whatever and hurt themselves. I don't know if we're responsible for that because you're technically not supposed to be riding them. But I don't want to see anybody get hurt. So I would prefer myself if, at some point, we call the Ogle County Sheriff's Department. I've never done it, called for anybody riding, and I see people doing all kinds of, people used to drag race on that road back there because there were no houses. They would actually line up at one end and drag race down the other. But, I never called the police because at the time, nobody lived there and it was just a nuisance.
How did your car do in those races? I meant to ask.
I have a 4-door sedan. It wouldn't do anything, but
No, I think everybody agrees on the safety piece, and I think
Yeah,
personally that's what made everybody think about options and what would be a possibility, but in what John's pointing out as well, adding additional rules isn't gonna make it any safer because still, and I think Rick's right in the fact that the adults, it's not just kids. I should never say that because there's plenty more adults than kids, quite frankly. They still are gonna do what they're gonna do because there is nobody that's going to make them stop. And so I don't even think the rules are gonna make those that are already doing it safely any safer and those that are doing it any more illegally.
the Ogle,
You got a point.
the Ogle County Sheriff's Department can enforce the,
our ordinances.
no, the state
The state, right.
statutes for riding on the street on a uniform, what do you call it?
Citation.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Uniform code of.
P-ticket, called a P-ticket.
the vehicle code.
Yeah.
They can enforce the state vehicle code, which we have adopted, like you said, so they could come in and actually enforce those.
Right, but one of the things the vehicle code says that in order to allow non-highway vehicles on village streets, you need a study and you need,
Yeah,
an
no, I'm
ordinance.
saying.
Speeding,
I'm going-
speeding, whether it's in a
Yeah,
No,
car.
I'm going totally the opposite way. I'm
And I
saying,
think it-
does the vehicle code, doesn't it outlaw or disallow people to ride ATVs and the rest on the street?
Yep,
So the only kind of-
unless you.
Right, and we haven't done that, so
Yeah, right.
it's clearly here within the village is against the law.
Exactly,
And the Ogle County Sheriff's Department could ticket people if they
Yeah.
wanted.
yes.
So to go back over this whole thing, we started off with a ban that's been in place for a while, state law. We decided that we would like to look into possible revisiting the sheriff, hiring them back for protection or enforcement of these as basically buybacks. We shelved that because we know what's the point in spending $150,000 for the 2 or 3 people that are actually doing it. And we went on to making rules to govern how those vehicles would or would not be allowed on our streets. And again, we're right back to the enforcement issue. So we've really got to figure out which direction we want to go.
But we don't have to pay the Ogle County Sheriff's Department to patrol when they're supposed to already.
That's my point originally.
You don't have to pay them, but you have to be able to get them to do it.
And they have no obligation to come out here and patrol either.
There's no set number of minutes per day. I
There's
mean,
no.
I'm sure there's not, but we all are taxpayers and we all are voters and we do
100%.
vote for the sheriffs.
But there's no, we've had this conversation, there is no threshold that says a county sheriff is required to provide this level of service or or this-
I'm sure there is in any police department, period. But if you call and make a complaint that somebody's riding recklessly on a whatever, and if that's the case, because I see people ride, regularly all the time, but I also see people ride recklessly, then they should be responding because they are required to cover this area. We pay taxes for it and we all vote.
but even yourself, not to pick on you, watched illegal drag racing and didn't call. So you have a lot of residents that don't call because it will take too long for them to respond, because they do have better things and more
I
important things to
understand,
do
but
and worry about.
that's a choice they're
why.
making, and that was a choice that I made.
So there you go. I mean,
Hey, Dan, can I ask you a question?
Still doesn't cost us.
Yes,
So let's say we have people that are out driving their 4-wheelers or whatever, and they go on our property, let's say out by the drainage, like towards where we used to have the old, and they hit a culvert, roll, whatever, get hurt. Who is liable in that? Specifically, the fact that that's private property.
We have tort immunity, don't we?
right. You have tort immunity. I imagine there's theories that could be alleged, but yes, is generally tort immunity for the village. There's tort immunity for there's immunity for not adopting an ordinance. If somebody sues you for saying that you should have adopted.
Well,
an
and I guess I use that as an example, because let's say somebody is driving their ATV or whatever on the street and something happens, they lose control, they go up into a residence property or hit a parked vehicle sitting on the street, maybe hit back by whatever and hits, a culvert.
You know what you got to do now? You have to sue that person civilly.
yeah.
Well, right, I'm just
And
saying,
it's a pain in the ass.
I'm just bringing up stuff for liability on who is liable for things when these people are driving
I'm
and,
out.
I don't think we would be, yeah.
no, but I'm just trying to put it out
Right.
there. If they go up into a resident's property,
But that's no different if a dog
never
bites
know what the
somebody
way the
or a
law's going
trampoline
anymore.
becomes airborne and, I mean.
No, that's covered under homeowner insurance. Both
Oh,
of those scenarios
well,
are.
you're in with State Farm, Zach or Zake, whatever his name. What's his
There's a
name?
difference there.
Jack, Zeke, what is his name?
Jake.
Jake from State Farm.
I'm just throwing it out there because there's a ton of scenarios for safety issues and who's liable and who's not, since they're taking it into their own hands. If they drive on private property or are in an area that they don't know and they hit something.
Bring us back around to your list here, Jared. I mean, if this is what we're working on for number 3, I don't support anyone under the age of 16 driving.
No, I don't think they should be at all.
Number 12, must have proof of ownership. I don't know how you can have proof of ownership on some of these things. They don't come with titles. and they don't come with state registrations.
Because
And
I got
number
a title
18,
for mine,
4-foot
all
pole,
mine.
a 4-foot pole wouldn't
Some
even
do.
go over the height of my golf cart when I owned one, so.
I don't think you can even take children that small and they have those little kid ones can take those even out on the trails, like the state trails or anything.
What?
The ATVs, because don't they have to have like certification of safety certification and stuff like that?
Oh, Wisconsin, all you have to do is get a registration.
Oh, Wisconsin can do whatever they want.
And then you gotta have one of them, orange poles with the orange flag on it. So it's
Right, but I
visible.
thought they also had to go through a safety class or something.
No.
So where are we at?
Or in parks.
Nothing this
Where are you
evening,
off?
Your Honor.
I feel like Joe Biden asking, where am I?
Oh, I'm at, it doesn't make sense to move forward with something.
To add more rules.
Just
to
because the mac and
council
cheese
to
don't
enforce.
taste cheesy, you don't keep adding cheese to it to make it better. And that's all we're trying to do. We're gonna open it up and this is gonna make it better. No, it's not. It's gonna be more headaches of what we can't enforce in the first place. I agree with Chris. If we're gonna spend any kind of money, let's try to come up with a way. But at the same time, how much money do you really want to throw at a couple people riding a quad into town? I mean, as
That's
far
what
as
we thought.
liability, Jen, obviously, we're not
I mean,
responsible.
if you look at the
for it.
police reports, the number one police report in our area is domestics. And police being here isn't going to solve a domestic.
And I think the best thing the residents can do that are watching this tonight live
Exactly.
is to call the police when they see these things. If they get if they get 1 or 2 calls a month, they're not going to probably really think of it. If they get 100 calls a month, maybe it will become a different issue. They can't be getting that many calls, or I'm positive they would respond to
And for
this.
the most part, I would think that like, if I mean, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody else. If I saw somebody driving by that was reasonably driving
So-
by, I probably don't even care.
Mhm.
But if I saw somebody that was being reckless, I would want to call. I have never called either, just like
Yeah, I mean, I haven't.
I have not called. I've seen them go by and I've seen them fly by and whatnot. I have never even thought to call.
John, you hit it right on the head. If we change these rules, relax and we allow them, all we're gonna do is start fielding complaints from the law-abiding people.
Yep.
Asking,
Yep.
why aren't we doing something about the violators?
Why am I doing all this? And
Yes.
they don't have to do
Because
it.
they're still going to be the ones that
So-
follow the rules.
You're just making.
I want nothing more than to have some of these things allowed. I've said that for over 10 years, but
Mhm.
It's
I
the
don't
how.
see the reality. of
So let me ask a question. Does anybody, does IDNR have a, I know they have their own ATVs that they patrol with. Is that something we could consider contacting them if we start seeing, as we're heading now into the warmer months?
The conservation
Starts,
police,
I don't think,
Is that who
I
you're talking
think your
about?
conservation that,
they wouldn't be here.
No.
If we had a state park.
and there's like one in the entire northern state.
They're gonna be in public state parks and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna come out here.
I mean, that's another problem with the Ogle County Sheriff, not that they can avoid it, but they're in a car and people are chasing around dirt
Oh,
bike
yeah.
quads and
If they
and
ran,
UTVs, they're just gonna fly away and you're not gonna, they can't follow them.
and that's probably why they don't really do anything, is because there's no way they're gonna catch them.
Well, that, and there's probably more
Well, what for?
important things to do.
The new
than-
law, they can't do anything anyways.
What new law?
The one that just passed.
Yeah, they
4 weeks
can't
ago.
chase you.
They can issue them a ticket and they can go off and continue doing it again.
That's what they do in Rockford.
Yes, it is true. 100%.
Yeah, that's what they do in Rockford. They don't chase anybody down.
I don't know.
100%.
They wouldn't
I've
catch
asked
them
a
anyway,
dozen
so
cops.
it's kind of,
The more-
They take a snap of your license plate and send you a ticket.
Mark,
in the
issue
mail.
them a ticket and you let them go.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
All right. Are we pretty much in consensus for dropping this?
Yeah.
Yep.
I
All right.
guess.
Anything further, Jared, before we move on to parks?
Nope, that is it.
All right, parks,
I have nothing this evening.
Chris, streets. That's kind of weird. The streets guy didn't know the name of the last street.
You know, I've been down it 100 times, but I've never paid attention to it. No, we don't have anything, right?
No, we're good.
All right.
Utilities, Dina?
I'm not aware of anything tonight.
Nothing at this time.
Did anything come of the emergency expenditure that we were talking about?
It's ordered. The
Okay.
HVAC is ordered, so we're waiting on it. So I don't know if it's technically an emergency now because we got the price it's ordered. So however you want to do that, I don't.
Did we get the price? We should
Yeah.
have passed it.
Yeah, we should have put it on tonight's agenda if we
We
had
should
it
have put it on
Friday.
yeah, for a vote then.
Well, I think you can still vote on it because you do have an agenda item for emergency expenditures if you want to pull up the
just need the
invoice and let
invoice.
William know what it is. Do you have the invoice?
No, I handed it in. I said, add the 221. I handed it in. Yes. A week or so ago.
All right.
So
Guess
we'll
it's
vote
waiting.
on it in 2 weeks.
Everybody
Okay.
know what it is? I think you informed the board.
Last week.
Last week we talked
It's
about
like
it, I think.
$6,700.
No, I mean, what, it's the HVAC, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
We talked
Yeah.
last week, we
Yes.
talked about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
yeah.
I thought it was a heater.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Don't confuse me with that big talk.
Those damn acronyms. Anything further, Dina? Anybody on economic development? Contacted twice. We have one internet provider looking at preliminarily coming into town, maybe. Option.
I gave them all the information they asked from me.
And then we have our gas station restaurant storage unit guy back. So. Hey, fifth time, seventh time's the charm. We'll
Did
see.
he have all of his ducks in a row?
Better.
For the same
Well, it
Dan?
could
idea?
be better. I mean, and the thing is.
It's for the same idea?
Never mind.
We are reviewing.
Rick?
They're reviewing it now. So yeah,
Same
same, basic, same idea, but we got to make sure that everything's in the proper sequence that we want to see, not.
It hasn't even made it before the PZC at this point, or the PZC chair has not seen it. That's how we're.
But he said, he did say, and this is, I think, something that should be shared. If you want to see what it would look like,
Not
it
really.
would be a carbon copy of the one at Flag Road in 251.
Are they climate controlled?
Oh, Benny's.
Not, oh.
Yes,
I don't know.
Jared.
Yeah, that's the one, Benny's right
Jared.
there across the
Is
street
it
from
Benny's
Mason's
or
Work,
Benny's?
Benny's.
Benny's.
Benny's is up here.
or whatever it's called, Benny's.
He is aware that he would, of the board's position about, is that 12, 18 months ago?
Yes. I don't know that Dan and I could share that anymore with him or his attorney.
Yes. So he's back. We'll see how this one goes.
Yep.
Just to inform you guys.
Okay.
Anything further from anybody, economic development? Public?
Motion to adjourn?
No.
No.
You're trying to cut Sandy
Hold
off.
on, Glenda, do you have anything?
Yeah, have you heard anything more from the grocery store?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's it. That was my only question.
Thanks. Hi, Glenda.
Hello.
We miss you.
All right, Sandy,
All
let him
right.
have it.
I discuss this all the time, that as much as I sit in here with you guys, I'm still a resident and a
That's why you're
former,
under public.
huh?
That's why you're under public.
Even though you sometimes let the public speak at other
I know.
times, but I get why you put me here.
Because you're in a different situation than regular public.
So, I'm also a former trustee, so I'm going to circle back to Verizon. As a former trustee, who's the only person who voted no on that Verizon deal, the entire board actually voted no first, and then it came back and
Not the
somebody,
entire board.
the entire board voted no
No,
first.
they did not.
I'll pull the records later.
It was a split. It was a 3-3 tie. Yes, it was.
It got,
Failed to get a majority vote. That's why it failed. I was there.
So who broke the tie?
nobody did because, and
Nobody.
this is
We were
why I know
unable
that
to.
it wasn't. Hold on. We're going to circle back to that. It failed
You're good,
first, and then somebody changed the deposit amount or the amount that they had to pay
Terms of
upfront
Terms of the agreement.
by $1, which is
$5.
$1.
Oh my God.
What?
Who
William,
cares?
stop.
I was there.
Are you with all the public like this?
When it's wrong, yeah.
Anyway, circling back to the point. So
They
it
changed
got
the dollar
changed-
figure.
It got changed by a small amount to be determined what that might have been because something happened. Verizon came in there and talked to each one of those board members and convinced them that this is a fantastic thing. And I ended up being the only person voting no. And I didn't vote no because it's in my backyard. I voted no because they didn't have their stuff together in the agreement and they didn't have the stuff together in what they were providing to us. And so now here I am as a resident with it in my backyard with noise making. It used to whistle. It's falling apart. They didn't put the landscaping up there. The gravel now has grass essentially growing out of it. It's in horrible condition. And so as much as you guys sit there and are like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this, but me and my neighbors don't want to sit there and look at it either, because that's not what we agreed to. That's not what this village board fought to agree to with Verizon. So why aren't we holding them responsible? If my neighbor's fence looked like that, the building inspector would hold them responsible. But this is Verizon. And so as a resident, I'm asking you guys hold them responsible for what they were supposed to provide to us. And I know they're not going to give us an enclosed building. Then give us something that just doesn't make noise. And give us something that looks good like they promised us in the beginning.
Well, I think that's the benefit of us moving forward, where they've gotten it to. Let's take it further and see what we can get.
And I agree with that. But to those who are like, well, let's just stop. No, those residents who live back there don't want to have to look at what this board's willing to settle for. All right, I step off my residential platform.
Just one
Oh,
question for you.
Yes.
Before John adjourns us. How much are you willing to spend of village money to make sure that happens?
We shouldn't have signed an agreement to begin with.
Well, that's a
And
lot.
hold on. And we shouldn't have continued to dilly-dally like we've been doing. And I don't think we would have spent as much money if we would have moved forward with a lawsuit initially, filed it, let them deal with it. And I think that we probably would have spent less money than where we are right now. But we keep giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I can't hear that number.
Yeah, and I do have to ask, I do want to interrupt and ask, I'm not certain on the dilly-dally part. I feel like every single time that we've been called.
No, I just want to know a
I'm
number.
not saying it's on the village's part. It's on Verizon as well. I mean, it took us 9 months to get them to answer to us, but
Okay, so like then that's
Yeah.
not the village dilly-dally.
I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that both parties have been delayed in
A
responding.
number?
I'm pretty sure we gave.
We
our
could have spent less
attorneys
than
the legal-
100,000 and gotten taken
All right. All right,
taken care of.
you know,
And
all
I think that that would have been respectable for the amount of equipment that's up there.
right, okay. That sounds
I would-
reasonable.
I will only respond this way. You constantly say residents in the plural form, but I've only heard one. And I don't disagree that there's problems, and I don't disagree that things should happen. But I hear one resident, and I've only heard one resident, other than the whistle. And I know people that live there that have my personal cell phone. And other than that whistle that happened a few years back, that was resolved, to my understanding, I don't hear
So
of
the
anything
duct tape
else.
falls off. Okay, I will gather up my residents, my neighbor residents, so that we can come here and fill this room just like other people do. Just because I speak in residents plural and they are either unable to attend or unwilling to attend, doesn't make them less important as residents.
I don't disagree, but that doesn't mean we don't have other forms of communication either. Email, cell phone, text messaging. They don't have to come and sit here for a meeting and wait for public.
Well, whether it's
If
singular.
there's a
or-
legitimate complaint, people typically speak up.
That's not accurate.
Okay.
And I can tell you that in dealing with the utility bills, that is not accurate at all.
I'll just say whether it's
I'll
one
gather my
person or,
resident neighbor.
well, whether it's one person or 100 people, we represent one person or 100 people. So, I mean, whether it's
Can I add
plural, that's
something?
irrelevant.
Go ahead, Glenda.
Sorry.
I also remember attending a meeting, whether it be video or in person, I don't remember which, where two people, males that are on the board, specifically said to the public, they're not going to listen to them unless they.
She muted, I think. She looks muted.
Glenda, you're muted and cut out.
You said unless they, and then you went silent.
Two board members who were male did state at a meeting that they weren't going to listen to any resident unless they showed up at the meeting.
She's not wrong. Okay, I'm stepping down off my resident platform.
All right. Anything further from public?
Nope, that's it.
Anything further from the board members before we adjourn? I have one thing, and that would be to thank whoever gave me a birthday card, because breaking the 54 barrier now. So. Thank you. Anything further from the board members before we adjourn?
No, sir.
Try it again, Jared.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
You were waiting for John to do that.
He was too slow.
Jared makes a motion to adjourn. Chris seconds.
Do we need?
Roll
to
call,
do a roll
please.
call?
Chris,
Yes.
William,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Dina.
Yes.
It is 8:03.